Now y'all know what a damselfly is, right? It's not a dragonfly, though it's kind of similar. I'm talking about this guy. And some folks might not know that these are aquatic bugs, meaning they live near the water and they have a nymphal form. And their nymphs are huge. So let's tie one right now. Hello everybody, welcome to Savage Flies. I'm Matt, thank you for stopping by. So the pattern I'm going to be doing today, I got it from Charles Brooks' 1976 Nymph Fishing for Larger Trout. Now this is a fishing book, not really a tying book, but he does have a couple of dozen patterns in it, and one of them is the green damsel nymph. Now this is a pretty standard nymph, but it is huge. It can be tied as big as a 6 and as small as a 10 on a 3X long hook. And you can tie it in a few colors. I'm going to be tying it in a green, but you could also tie it in a tan or a brown or a dun. And it's a really simple pattern. Probably not one that you'd put a dozen of in your box, but if you fish waters that regularly have damselflies or dragonflies, it's not a bad idea to have a few of these in your box. So it's pretty cool, very easy. I think you're going to like it. Let's give it a shot. So there's one in the vise, a green damsel, just a pretty simple damselfly nymph. Now these are pretty big bugs. As big as a 6, as small as a 10. I'm going to tie it on a size 10. It's a 3X long. Let's go ahead and pinch this barb right here and get this situated. And I am going to put some weight on it, but I'm not getting crazy with the weight. I'm going to use an 015, probably the first half. And whether you weight it or not, it kind of depends on what water you might fish it in. Very fast water, of course, you want it a little bit heavier. But if you're fishing some still waters or slow runs, then maybe not weight it. And you have a choice of thread, black or a green or maybe an olive. I'm going to go with black because that's what I had in my spool. Put it down behind the weight, take it up over, put it down in the front, and then bring it back to the bend of the hook. Now this thing does have a pretty cool tail. It is peacock sword fibers. Sword, not hurl, sword. If you don't have sword fibers, I'd probably go with maybe an an ostrich hurl. And one kind of neat trick here, if I can get them where the fibers are angled up, I think it looks pretty cool, but I can't always do that. Sometimes mine end up just curving all over the place. But so far, let's see. All right, those are sticking up. I think that's kind of cool looking. And either snip or bury these in. I'm just going to bury them up to that weight. It's not adding much bulk, but a little bit. And I'm not really even worried about that drop down between the weight and the hook. So next component, a gold Mylar tinsel. And this is a small, which the spool says size 14, 16, so I think that equates to a small, but I'm just going to catch it in right on top with the gold side toward the hook. Go ahead and bury that right there. Now we're going to put some dubbing on. And the recipe in this old book just says green fur. So make of that what you will. And I would probably use rabbit if I had it, but I did not have a rabbit in this green color because it wasn't an olive green and it wasn't a caddis green, just kind of somewhere in between. And I know in the camera that looks a little bit like a caddis green, but I've mixed some of that with some olive, so I think when we put it on there, it's not going to be too bright green. But this fly and this bug, it's not necessarily an olive color. It's almost like a Kelly green. And if you know what Kelly green is, it's that kind of, St. Patrick's Day light green. And I'm going to try and get a little bit of a taper here. It's probably going to take 2 noodles to dub this all the way up, but I'm not worried too much about a taper. I'm going to put the body about 2/3 up, then I'm going to wrap the rib, then I'm going to put the thorax with pretty much the same dubbing, but maybe just a little bit thicker. So let's put a little bit more on here and then finish getting this up. Okay, I got a little bump in there, but you know what? I think we're gonna be able to take care of that with this rib. We'll see. And I do have a little bit of a taper, but again, not all that vital, because we're gonna get our profile by putting a thicker thorax on it. So let's take 4 or 5 turns of this Mylar tinsel, and I did not leave myself with a whole lot here, but did we get it up there? Yeah, we did. We're in fine shape. That rib looks okay. I'm going to fold it back, a couple extra wraps just to really lock it in. Now I'm going to use, for the thorax, you could use the same green. It's probably not a big deal at all, but I'm going to use it a little bit darker. So this one is kind of pretty much an olive green right here. So I'm going to dub the thorax fatter than the body and maybe just a little bit darker. Okay, I think that's fine there. I could probably go a little bit thicker, but I'm not going to worry about it. Now the next component is the front hackle, a soft hackle, and this one does call for an olive, a Grizzly dyed olive. But if you don't have Grizzly dyed olive, I would go with a regular Grizzly or a brown, just something that's going to be a little bit darker than the fly's body. And you see what I did there? I'm just kind of measuring the fibers by holding it right there. I want them to be about half the length of the body. If it was a small fly, I'd probably catch it in from the tip, and then my first couple wraps would be putting down small fibers. But this is a pretty good sized fly, so I'm going to strip it off from the thick side and then catch it in right here. And then I'm immediately wrapping some pretty, long fibers. So let's get that caught in. Snip this butt end off right there. Got a little fuzz right there, but we're going to be able to take care of that with our head. And this feather, it might be 2 inches. So I'm going to be kind of crazy and try to wrap it here without my hackle pliers. Sometimes I wonder why I do things like that, because it could slip out of my fingers and then I have to say cut, start over, or just show you all my screw ups. If I showed you all my screw ups, my videos would be about twice as long. So there we go. I think that was probably 3 wraps, and that's going to be enough of enough of a hackle. It's going to stick down far enough on the body. So I'm going to get in here and just trim the stem, and now I'll work on my head. I do want these swept back, so I'm going to pull them all back, take a few wraps going back, and I think we can let go and see how it does. Okay, that's pretty good, nice and swept back. Now just work on the head. And it's a nymph, so build his head as big as you want, or as small as you want. I think that's going to be fine right there. Let's go ahead and whip finish this guy. And one way I like to snip my thread, sometimes if you're in danger of clipping some of your fibers, just open your scissors and then poke them through. Or just open your scissors and put it right up underneath it, pull your thread tight, and then you can just kind of saw it off. And that keeps the little tag end from coming down. But there you go, that's it. It's a pretty simple tie, and just a standard damselfly nymph. Pretty fun, pretty easy to tie, and I'm sure it'll be effective anywhere you got damselflies around. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.